It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, talking your real estate right across another very busy weekend in Australia. Good luck with all of those properties you might be checking out today. Of course, you can hear us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as Amazon. And it's a Sunday, October the 6th today, and the federal government at the moment is under pressure to support the construction industry after more construction companies have collapsed, impacting 10 projects alone in Sydney and Illawarra. This includes actually significant work at the Western Sydney International Airport. Of course, this is devastating for subcontractors, and I remember this time last year a similar thing sort of taking place, sort of looking ahead to Christmas and some building construction companies going out of business. In fact, on Tuesday, we are going to be talking to Paul Bidwell, the CEO from the Master Builders there in Queensland, for his take on all of that. But coming up next, we are going to be looking back over a very busy week with some of those key interviews.
Ready to step up your property knowledge? Access powerful insights with us.
Yeah, it's really a unique market. I guess when you think regional, people think much lower price points. And you can get into Hamilton Island at a lower price point, but we also have a lot of properties that sell in that sort of $10 million plus range.
Perhaps tell us a little bit about the demographics there, Lynn. Mum and dad investors are investing. Now, a lot of people might be a little bit surprised by that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people think of Hamilton Island as this really high-end destination where it would cost you an absolute bomb to buy property. And that can be true. I mean, there's definitely that element to the market. But we find our core demographic, mum and dad investors, you can get in the market from $250,000 for a really small one-bedroom, nice little investment property. But the core of our market sort of sits at around that $1 million to $1.3 million, two-bedroom, holiday-let type property that can get you a really nice return of sort of 5+%. And what we find is people buy these properties so that they have that lifestyle investment. They can come up and use the property, but they also get that really nice return while it's vacant. They're really easily managed. The whole island is geared around holiday and holiday making. So everything's set up and in place to attract these type of people to come to the market, spend money and, stay in these beautiful luxury properties.
Now, you said $250,000 for a one-bedroom apartment. What?
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. Usually that type of property is a permanent rental. It's leased out to, say, a staff member that lives and works on island. Again, still really good investment. The rental market's really tight and in high demand on the island, so there's usually no vacancies. But you can absolutely enter the market at a really low price.
Well, that will probably be quite surprising for many people because you've got connectivity, haven't you, in terms of flights in, and I think that's always sort of been changing and evolving over the last 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, every day you can fly to the island direct from Sydney, Melbourne or Brisbane. And most, I think, Jetstar, Qantas and Virgin all fly from those destinations. So getting to the island is really easy. Once you're on island, it's usually a really short buggy ride and you're at your property or you're at the attractions of Hamilton Island enjoying your holiday.
Now, what would you say to a couple, perhaps a young couple that are trying to get into the market? They've just heard you say $250,000 and they've looked at each other and they've said, well, we can afford that right now. Shall we go to Hamilton Island? What would you say to somebody that is going to be working from home if they've got that sort of a business to get into the market on Hamilton Island?
That's true. Look, it's really doable. The island's beautiful. You've got resort pools, you've got beaches, beautiful infrastructure and amenity around you. You're on the Whitsundays, so you can go out fishing every day. I mean, I don't know how much work you'd get done.
Every week, unravel the real estate market to empower your real estate knowledge.
So we're still, worst case scenario, par on par. Your $550,000 house, $550 per week rent. So it's a lifestyle combined with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of different things like military upgrades that are happening. Townsville's always been the sleepy town that has a lot of mining security around it, cane farming, and then also obviously we have the largest army base in Australia.
Okay, so let's have a look at the median prices because people will be interested in this, particularly if they're on 150K and they can't get into the Melbourne market.
So the median price in Townsville currently is $527. That would get you a beautiful home in most of the newer suburbs where you might have a pool, 800 square metre block, 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 garage, theatre room as well. So all your modern finishes. And everything in Townsville is no more than 20, 25 minutes away from each other. So it's a very well laid out city and lots of nice new estates, but then also sought after areas as well due to what services are surrounding them.
What are those units looking like at the moment, median price?
Oh, the unit's probably about 370,000 for a unit, and that would probably be the median, like a standard 2-bedroom. The great thing about units is they have not come back to pre-GFC prices yet. And it's very traditional in Townsville that anything coming up the coast, it's normally an 18 months, 2-year lag, and units are a very prime example of this. My specialty is in units, project marketing for nearly 10 years. So I can see that the prices have yet to have that run that we have had with houses. And this is why we're now getting a lot of unit attention back in Townsville, because also too, the house stock is very minimal. So people are looking for an alternative.
And the first home buyers, how active is that market in Townsville?
First home buyers, it's pretty active, but, for Townsville wages and stuff, it's difficult for them because our build costs. So getting into a new home to get the first homeowners grant is very difficult because we've got cyclone rating, all those kind of things that factor into our build costs. So they are quite significantly higher than if you were to build a house in Brisbane. To build a new home, you are going to be looking at $650 probably minimum for a standard 422 without the pool and any extra super bells and whistles. So a lot of them are choosing to go to the established homes and foregoing that first homeowners grant.
And what is the biggest challenge, do you think, between now and, I don't know, probably the first quarter of next year, sort of 6 months out from now?
So it's a little bit different because for us the last 12 years it's always been this oversupply of stock. Now, unless you're an established agent and what have you, it's very difficult to get that continuation of stock coming in. The demand is like we have never seen, or I haven't seen in 23 years ever. We used to get 1 inquiry a month from an investor. Now we're getting 3 or 4 people emailing, can you get us something? What can you get? And we simply don't have that. And there's nothing for the everyday person or someone wanting to upgrade. There's nothing to upgrade to. So when we used to look at days on market that used to be 100 plus, we're very lucky in certain areas to be on the market for a couple of hours or a day. So it's been quite a big change for us, adapting how we as real estate agents actually function. It's a lot more done online, WhatsApp videos. They want it done quicker to beat people. And the investors just continue to keep driving the prices down where we're just all shaking our heads. But it's a nice shake. It's a happy shake. And we're very pleased for it and very pleased for our owners because it's been a long time to wait till the market change. And finally, people understanding what infrastructure Townsville does have and what a secure market it is. It's nice to be a part of.
Now, they're selling their cherished family home, but they don't want to be doing that. But they've got to do it to fund gene therapy for their daughter who suffers from this rare neurodegenerative disease. Imagine having a daughter and you're told that the cost of her treatment is $5 million. I mean, that is an absolute nightmare, isn't it? So the Whitrods have founded Genetic Cures for Kids. It's a charity supporting research in drug discovery for rare diseases. And although letting go of their dream home, whilst that's difficult, they are committed to the mission of keeping their family together and giving their daughter hope for the future. The link is ourmoonmission.org, and I'm going to leave that in the show notes so that you can click on it if you would like to donate. And good morning to you, Matthew. I know that you are a parent and you've got a daughter probably a similar age.
I do. I've got a young daughter and a young son, and that sounds like an absolutely heartbreaking story. So if you don't, I didn't see the story myself, Craig, but if you can send that to me along with the link for the donation, then Capital Property Advisory will absolutely throw some money at that cause.
Yeah, great. Thanks for doing that, because every little cent is certainly going to help contribute. Now, the latest CoreLogic figures, they were released for September. And just a quick mention here, we will be talking to Eliza Owen on Monday morning regarding some of those findings. But Matthew, what is happening in Perth around that, as well as the rest of the country?
Yeah, I'll start with Perth. So, look, listings here have increased by another 8% in the past month after, I think, 12 the previous month. So we're probably up about 20-ish percent, maybe 25% over the last couple of months in terms of listings. But that's quite typical of spring and the spring selling season. But it's important to note we're still 20% lower than this time last year. From our perspective as buyers agents, it's a welcome change for us. We've got a little bit more stock to choose from, not a lot, and it hasn't felt too different on the ground, but every little bit helps at the moment when stock has been so constrained. And we've also noticed that buyer demand may have softened a little bit through winter, but it will be interesting to see what happens in spring and whether that does bounce back up or not. And then looking around the country, nationally, we saw just a 0.4% increases on prices across the major capitals, with half of the major capitals now either flatlining or declining. And that includes Sydney, which grew just 0.2%, and Melbourne, which has fallen a further 0.1%, while Perth and Adelaide continued their strong growth, and Perth continued to lead the country with a 1.6% growth rate. So still in the number one spot, but the rate of growth has begun to taper slightly.
We are more than just a real estate podcast. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
One of their big planks, which will certainly spark an interest for your listeners, was around new construction, new house and land packages, $50,000 incentive for a first homeowner, a $30,000 incentive for anybody that's owned a property before, and $10,000 for an established home.
Yeah, so just in terms of the 50K, if you did a price comparison, if you were going to build new, for example, in Brisbane, I mean, that is so favourable, isn't it, in Darwin compared to Brisbane and all the associated costs?
Absolutely. In our mortgage belt areas in Palmerston, which is a satellite city just to the edge of Greater Darwin, a brand new house and land package, 3 beds, 2 baths on sort of 400 square metres. You can sort of get an entry level in there around $600,000 depending on your level of fit out and whether you have a pool or not. So to add $50,000 into that, you're nearly hitting the 10% of the total cost. It's a real needle mover. You know, it's going to get that encouragement. It's not, it's a nice to have. It's a definite game changer for that part of the market. You know, and the builders and the early talk, because it is such a large portion of it, hopefully the borrowers will be able to use that for their deposit or at least have it packaged it up for their finance. So then, you know, if they were close, it'll push them over the line and they can get going on these new builds.
And time will to have a look at those median house prices and unit prices for everybody this morning.
Yeah, great. This is REINT and realestate.com supplied data. $561,000 for the Greater Darwin area for a house. It's always interesting to know what does it look like from the previous quarter and from the previous year. They're largely firm, so you know that's a good quality home, 800 square meters. You're going to pick that up for under $600,000. Really competitive. When you're looking at the inner suburbs around Darwin, $745,000 is the median house price. That's probably the entry level, so we have a lower data set, so that can be skewed a little bit. Another major market for the Greater Darwin area is the Palmerston market. The median house price out there at $510,000. Really high level of stock, good volume. That's really popular in the owner-occupier, but we're also starting to see more activity from investors. You hear the stories that, certainly Perth have had over the past 12 to 24 months with more activity from the East Coast with buyers agents and investors. Those rich, wealthy Australians looking to invest and broaden out their portfolio. Well, certainly, we're expecting and hearing anecdotally on the ground for more activity in that price point around that $500,000, which it's a pretty comfortable price point. Over in the unit market, the Greater Darwin unit price, it's sort of hovering around $400,000. It has been there for quite a period of time. So, what do you actually get for $400,000? Well, you'd get a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom unit sort of on the fringe of the Darwin CBD, or you push out to, the popular spots of the coastal spots of Nightcliff and Rapid Creek. close proximity to the beach and all the good things that Darwin has to offer. If you push out to Palmerston, the unit market is a bit softer out there, and for the low 300,000, so about 325,000, you'll get a 2-bed 2-bath unit out there. So it's certainly attractive from an owner-occupier standpoint. You can get started and get yourself into the market. Or for investors, it's pretty affordable when you look at Darwin as a overall package compared to some of our eastern seaboard locations.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.